Hello everybody, this is my name Pivot and I'll be ranking the decades from 1900s, early 1900s, 1900s, aka, and to 2020, with the 2020 so far. So, coming in at number, pretty much, or last place at least, I don't know, keep place up places, but the 1910s. 1910s. A lot of racism makes it suck. A lot of sexist people makes it suck. It's really lasts a full decade full of able to vote. Because they were able to vote in 1920, was 100 years ago this year. And serial killers got away with a lot of murder. Yeah. But not as much as the 1880s and 90s like Jack the Ripper, but there's something called the Atlanta Ripper or whatever it's called in the 1910s. Anyways, next up probably has to be again, 1950s. A lot of people disagree with this. I say it's higher up in the bad list. 1950s. My dad's parents were born in 1951, 1952 because his mom don't want to still alive of his parents. And then my grandma Judy. And then his dad Stephen was born in 1951 but died in 1975. October 1951 is August 1975. Died in a car crash with a drunk police officer. It was on a motorcycle, I'm not going to talk more about that. But 1950s, there's a lot of racism, there's segregation in schools, so there were really sexist in the 1910s, but there's still the truly second to last full decade with racism. The last full decade racist being in the 1960s, but 1970 for people with disabilities and minorities that be better treated. John 1970 year my mom was born. But anyways, next up is probably gonna have to be the 1900s. There was 1900s, or 1900s, 1900 and 1909. Well, they're okay, but a lot of racist people, sexist people again, a lot of murder and poverty. 1900 was the Great Galveston Hurricane. Oh my god, the wind that's my side. It's not for me, but guess what? Galveston Hurricane. A lot of crap. 1900, but 1909 had one of the worst hurricanes as well. 9 years later, at the end of the decade, called the Grand Isle Hurricane. One of the worst Category 3 hurricanes that ever happened. Galveston was only Category 4, I thought it was a 5, but no. But it has tsunami, but Galveston was on the water in 1900 when it happened. Was this racist and sexist again? A lot of discrimination, disabilities, like mostly decades so far that I put, all of them actually so far, and all that crap. And it's so long ago. There's not really good technology until a few decades later. But anyways, that's next. Probably have to be the 1930s. 1930s, a lot of discrimination against people with disabilities and minorities and females get better whites in this decade, but not. So the previous decade, they wouldn't have a vote at the beginning of that. 1920s, this will be right on the list in just a few minutes or so. But yeah, there's a lot of gangsters. El Capone was in the 20s and 30s both. El Capone was at his height, even though he died in 1947. So 49 will be way on this list as well. El Capone was at his height. And yeah, most of the people in the 80s now, but in the 1930s, they're in the 80s and 90s both this decade and 2020s. But also, next up, oh god, what would it be? I'd have to say the 1970s. Disco is one of the most famous music from the 1970s because they had good rock and roll, alternative rock. And I think rap was invented sometime in the mid to late 1970s. They get big till the early to mid 80s, and the 1990s being its biggest. And late 2000s, early 2010s, starting to suck. Go to the hill, but. Next, by 70s, my mom's one. My fingers too, but it really sucks. The decade's pretty boring to me. Disco was born and died in that decade. 70s, my mom was born the first year, 1970. In February, just a few days after my birthday. I was born in 2001. So, anyways, 1970s, not much. At least minorities and people with disabilities got better rights in 1970. First year of the 1970s. But anyways, 1970s pretty boring besides all that stuff to me. And also, next up, 1940s. My mom's parents. Mom was born 1970. Her parents were 1946 and 48 both. Because their opponent was China earlier in his height in the 1920s and 30s and died in 1947. In between when they were born. But 1940s, pretty damn boring. TVs are invented in the 30s, 20s, and 30s, but they didn't start getting until late 40s, early 50s. Which we talked about earlier in the 1950s. Started getting popular in a lot of homes. And then late 70s, late 80s, they started having channels though. All day instead of just morning and evening. But anyways, 1940s, pretty boring. Besides, like, World War II was this peak for began 1939, 39, and then 1945. And then that's pretty much it. Besides, a lot of racist people and skinny people against minorities and disabilities still. And next, after 1940s on the list, is 1960s. One of the best decades for music, in my opinion, in the way that happened in the 1960s for 65 onwards or 64 onwards. But Dad was the one in 1969, the rest of the 60s. But besides that, the one that had his mom still alive. And besides that, the last full decade of really racist is minorities and discriminative against people with disabilities. From 1970 years, I can being better for all of them. Have some pretty awesome rock and roll and all that, and alternative. Jazz is okay in there, but that's more that. And Martin Luther King, sadly, he was assassinated, as well as Malcolm X, both in the 60s. Because of racist, horrible people back then. But it's an okay decade. But that's the 1960s, and next is the 1920s. Because it had to be one, this is third to last on here. 1920s, hell. Pretty good. Pretty good decade for the war in 20s. 2020 is not so much so far. It's only 2020, the first year of the decade, but it has corona crap almost the whole year. Starting way about March. But everything in 2019 in December. This is called COVID-19. But anyways, back to the 1920s, the 120s, the gangsters were at the peak. Real more respectable back then, men and women. The woman won the right to vote in 1920. And also, all that is awesome. But they're still racist against minorities and discriminating against people with disabilities, sadly. But that's the 1920s, and gangsters are at the peak too. But anyways, after the 1920s, this will be a bit controversial one. 1980s and 90s are next on the list, but I have to say the 80s are next. It's no worse than the 90s in my opinion. Even though I was about to February 1st, 2001, but still. I think that the 80s has probably the best music besides the 90s and 2000s. 2010s, 2011 and 12 is starting to go downhill. For all kinds. 80s, some funky fashion, that's cool. Minorities and people with disabilities were treated rarer than all the previous decades. So that decade, plus Star Wars, first movie, A New Hope. So for the first movie, just called Star Wars, but also called New Hope now, is kind of say Sam, but the other two in the original trilogy came out in 1980. And I'll Strikes Back, but I think it's the best. But in my personal favorite, Return of the Jedi in 1983. In the 80s, have awesome music and movies. Nightmare on Elm Street for Halloween, so Halloween's coming up on top of that. And Friday the 13th, all in the 80s and 90s. And all that crap in funky fashion, but still pretty good. And well, good commercials. But yeah, that's the 1980s, and next is the 1990s. We're getting close to the end of our list. 1990s are next. 1990s. Good music again. Grunge. Rap was at its best. It's until Tupac and Biggie died, and we went down a lot downhill, but it's still pretty good until 2010, 11, or 12. 2012 is when most music went down, but still pretty good. And then also 90s had improved on that fashion from the 80s, better fashion. Minorities and people with disabilities were even better than all the past decades. They had a lot of good stuff. And it's a pretty good decade. A lot of people I know were born in the late 90s. But next is probably, since it just began when it's still the first year of the decade, we still have like a whole hell of damn lot of time left. It's like in 2020s. Corona, COVID is the main thing. Everybody thinks 2020s is so far. And then also 2021's not just like 3.5 months away, almost 3 months away exactly. And that 2021 February 1st, 2020, 19 this year in 2020, and February 1st, right past my birthday. The 2020, I was starting off living at the group home Canterbury since September 27th, 2019 until July 19th, 2020. July 19th of 2020 to March 14th of 2020, my favorite place I ever stayed at. I guess I can go back there, but I messed up. They'll say it and why about me. So it was Chris Raphael, me and him and Dylan. And March 14th to present of 2020 is in Wrestling Ground, the same company as Canterbury, but instead of ICF, like Canterbury is HCS program. And probably I'll be done until 2021, 2 or 3, or 4 even, or later than that, even than wrestling. But anyways, 2020's COVID, getting way down mid-March onward, and then awesome stuff so far, and a whole even more sucky stuff in 2020s, even though it's only 2020 still. But next, I have to say, the runner-up, 2010s, one of the 2 decades I grew up in. 2010s, regular show, Image Time for Cartoon Network, some of the best. What else? Steven Universe 2, and then also with Disney, okay, so Space and Ferb with the end 2008 and 9, I think, and then the 2010s, pretty good with Disney. With some forgotten shows like Kate Butowski or Zeke Luther, and then also, well, no, Rihanna, I don't really like that, but good television. And then for Nick, there's a Rakura, not as good as the original Avatar, everything, not as good as that, like half as good, in my opinion. And all kinds of shit, like, I feel like Chum Chum sucked. But pretty good shows in Nick too, as well. So, and then the fashion's pretty good, in my opinion. It's pretty brand though, compared to the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and 70s as well. But, and even 60s, and 50s, and 40s, but the last brand probably being in the 30s, but before. But crazy elections, Obama won for the second time in 2012 for president, the second time in goddamn low. Pretty good for most people. I'm meh on, but I mean more meh on Hillary versus Trump. Trump won. He's pretty good, but people hate him. So Trump, I don't like him, but I don't hate him. I'm probably not gonna vote for either Democrat or Republican. I'm not gonna vote for either. I'm gonna vote for a different party, but so your first time I vote, but I'm old enough now. But 2010s, and they had these crappy toys like Sigmund Jig and all that crap. In the early 2010s, music went downhill in 2010s, but it's pretty cool. 2010s, one of the 2 decades I grew up in. With number 1, the decade I was born in, but not because of that reason, but still the one I grew up in the most, 2000s, from 2000 to 2009, but really if you think of it, 2001 to 2009, because it's in a millennium and 2000 ends up with 0, so it's pretty much part of the 20th century. But you can think of it either way. It makes sense either way if it's its own year or if it's probably 2000s is the first year. With Y2K in that year. It was the year long I paid any year I was born. And then with me being born February 1st, 2001, and way that year I was 8.5 months old, 9/11, horrible shit. Just saying, I mentioned that the first Harbor, horrible shit. Oh, people would get along. In 2000s, has some of the best music on my opinion for pop, dance electronic. Rap was okay, still. Not as good as in the 80s and 90s, especially in the 90s, it is good. But still pretty good. Until 2012 and 13. But, and then rock is pretty good. And then they had awesome video games in the 2000s. My favorite being my first Pokemon game ever. I picked up when I first released in America in 2007, April 2007, Pokemon Diamond version. With it was maybe only in Japan. Everywhere else in 2006 in September. Just has the anniversary. I think one of the anniversaries of Pokemon Diamond did. Pokemon Platinum in 2009, Hot Girls and Silver in 2009. Well, this piece is like quite side, but anyways, 2009. And then besides Pokemon, they have Gears of War, Call of Duty became first was in that decade. They had all kinds of crap like Final Fantasies, they're pretty good in that decade. Freaking Mario and Super Mario both all good. With Mario Sunshine, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. Wii Sports Resort, Sports and Wii Sports Resort. And Resident Evil has a pretty good with Waymaker, Twilight Princess, and all those. Also, what other games? And also, Halo is pretty good. As well as for Nintendo, Sonic was pretty good, but that's Sonic Sega, but yeah, in 2000s, but that's all good. The 2000s being my top decade from the 1900s to the 2020s. Number one 2000s, not just because I was born in that decade, but also because it's a shit, it's awesome. It's my type of shit. 2000s, sorry custom, but anyways, 2000s, 2000 to 2009, if you think of it, if you really want to go personal, 2001, 2009, you're going to think the other way. Being the number one decades of 2000s, early 2000s is what they're called. But will the 2020s get better after 2020? Hopefully in 2021 and 2022 the virus goes away and it's talking better. I don't know. But this is a segment 2001 signing off. Take care. Peace.